8:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So we can't have any SROs in elementary schools. Want to speak to James Smallwood, Fraternal Order of Police right now. James, thank you very much for calling into Nashville's Morning News. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
So let me ask, I'm very much against this no SROs in elementary schools. Police Chief John Drake says it's a matter of they can't find enough people to fill these positions. Is that true? I understand that we have a shortage, but do you buy that?
Yeah, Dan, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. I'm going to throw some statistics at you, and I hope you'll give me a little bit of a wide berth. I promise I'll bring it full circle at the end of this. But
okay.
Yes, I do agree with Chief Drake and the MNPD. We are in the largest recruitment and retention crisis that our profession has ever seen. And this is not just a Nashville-centric problem. We're seeing this across the country. The Police Executive Research Forum, which is a large executive police think tank, reported a 36% decline in new applicants for large cities across the nation. The International Associations of Chiefs of Police have reported a 63% decrease in the number of applicants for open positions across the country. And applications, like I said, in every major city across the country are down, devastatingly down. And here in Nashville, it's no different. From 2020 to today, applications for new police officers are down 33%. Now, it's important to note that the MNPD has worked diligently to put together the most robust recruitment effort that I have ever seen in my time in this department, and likely that it has ever had. They have literally pulled out all the stops to try and overcome these challenges. By the way, if you don't mind, shameless plug here, if you are in the community and you're interested in law enforcement, we've got a recruiting event this Saturday at Coleman Park. I encourage you to come out, take a look, see what you can do to support your community and help serve. But back to where we're at. It's reasonably difficult for people like you and people in the community to understand why we're struggling to fill these positions. So I'm going to try and paint a picture as to why I think we're here. You heard the statistics that I just threw out about recruiting and applicants, but I'm going to throw out a couple more just for you to think about. In the 2023 Vanderbilt poll, 70% of largely liberal respondents, by the way, approved of the job that the MNPD was doing. Conversely, those same respondents, only 57% approve of what the Metro Council is doing. And just this week, 2 days ago, Nashville's police officers were subjected to baseless rhetoric and outright false statements by council members who are more interested in the problem than they are in the solution. They stand at their bully pulpit, they say whatever they want, there's no recourse, and nobody wants to challenge what they're saying. Just months after one of the finest responses we've ever seen to an active school shooting across this country, one that likely could have been stopped sooner if an SRO was present in the school, by the way, we have Metro Council members standing on their bully pulpit saying that kids are not safer in schools with an SRO. That's pathetic. It's reckless, and it's an attempt to demonize police, and frankly, it's pure insanity, and they should be ashamed of themselves. If they're willing to put their politics ahead of the safety of the children in our community, it's time for them to go. Full stop. Submit your resignation tomorrow. We don't need you anymore. And that, when you have people who are looking for a career, looking for a new job, when they're looking at law enforcement as a possible career, and they see city leaders talking insanity like that, and they know they won't have the respect and the support of those council members, they're not going to come here. So, of course, our applications are down. Of course we can't recruit. Of course we can't keep the people who are willing to put their lives on the line for complete strangers.
Let me ask you, James Smallwood, joining us, Fraternal Order of Police. Is there any justification for them saying that kids are not safer with SROs in schools? Like, how do they justify that statement? Is there research out there? Is there, because they won't come on my show. I mean, I've tried to get some of them on my show. They won't come on. But you would think that if that's what, yeah, if they
won't come on because you'll bring facts and evidence to the table.
Well,
these folks are.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, what's the justification for such a statement? Because that, I think you said, that lacks all common sense.
Yeah. I mean, these individuals are relying on decades-old anecdotal reports and evidence to support their continuing argument that the police department is the problem. And they're looking at the police department, and they're doing everything they can to make the argument that we need to start defunding the police. And by the way, earlier I remarked that we were not insulated from the recruitment and retention issues. Something that we have been insulated from over the past years, thanks to the previous administration, is the defund the police movement. Nashville largely did not see any defunding in their budget because the leaders saw the importance to make sure that public safety was a priority in their city. And you've seen in cities across the country, New York, Los Angeles, Austin, Philadelphia, you've seen them all go in and say, we got to defund the police to make our communities more safe. Guess what? That experiment failed. Every single one of those cities experienced a dramatic spike in violent crimes and other offenses across the cities, and the decisions of those reckless politicians led to the victimization of their communities. And I tell you what, as it relates to SROs, I've got kids in public school. I thank God every single day that they have a competent and caring police officer who's willing to put their life on the line if it comes to that. And I thank God every day that that police officer is there building relationships with my children. And these politicians in our city who are saying that SROs make our schools less safe, shame on them. They need to go.
I wonder if, and I don't understand the mentality of people sometimes that disagree with having SROs in schools. But I guess the question would be, we know how the school board feels and some of these folks, but how does the community feel about not having SROs in elementary schools? We have, we all know what happened at the Covenant school shooting. We all know that this is every parent's worst nightmare. And so I do wonder how the community feels. You're, of course, in touch with the community. I would be willing to bet, James Smallwood, Fraternal Order of Police, that the cops are more in touch with the community than the school board and the Metro Council, to be perfectly honest, because you folks are out in the community.
It's interesting you bring that up, Dan. We have some council members who purport themselves to represent the entire community, and they're acting like they have a mandate. But what they've forgotten is they only receive 20% of the overall populace vote. So they absolutely do not have a mandate. They have a mandate for the 20% that voted in this election, which, by the way, we got to step up our game. We got to get out there and start electing leaders who care about this city. This is never going to change until people start getting active and realizing that. But, yeah, you're absolutely 100% correct. And we heard Councilman Nash speak at the council meeting about how when we started seeing these active school threats come down the pipeline years and years ago, that they got in touch with their community members, that they got in touch with who was then the school board, and they heard from them and what they wanted. And what they wanted was a police officer in schools. They wanted somebody who could be there immediately to stop the threat. And what did our other council members that are purporting all these reckless statements pivot to? One incident that occurred in Florida years ago. Not something that happened here. One incident where a police officer failed to do his job, and he was prosecuted for that failure. They didn't pivot to what we did here just months ago, where we responded in, I think it was 14 minutes, and eliminated the threat and stopped the further violence and killing. They didn't pivot to that, no. They pivoted to a failure that occurred states away years ago so they could try to continue to paint law enforcement in a bad light. Shame on them.
James, a couple things. Well, first of all, I got to check the traffic real quick, then I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask you, do you know which, and I'm going to find out, which council members actually said that the schools are less safe with SROs in schools? I'm curious to know if we know who exactly that was. James, do we know which of these council members said that our schools are less safe with SROs?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that statement came from Councilwoman Delisha Porterfield. But I think what's more important here is on the council floor, we had a vote to accept additional grant funding to support SROs in our schools. And I'm going to give you the list of the 12 council members that said, no, we don't want any money for SROs. Those are the folks we need to hold accountable to this. Those are the folks that it's time for them to go. We don't need them anymore. That's Zulfat Suara, Delisha Porterfield, Olivia Hill, Joy Smith-Kimbrough, Keontae Toombs, Sean Parker, Emily Benedict, Deontay Harrell, Jenny Welsh, Terry Vo, Jeff Preeptit, and Sandra Sepulveda. You know what? If you don't want SROs in schools, go home. We don't need you. What we need are safer schools. We need people there who are willing to protect our children and not advance their personal politics above the kids in our community.
Let me ask, James, because every time the conversation of SROs comes along, and we do it here on WTN or Nashville's Morning News. I get hammered with people, super texters and so forth, that say that they would love to be an SRO and they want more information on how to do it. Can you describe what is the recruitment process that you folks go through to, find SROs?
Well, an SRO is nothing other than a police officer who has a care for the kids in our community. You come through the training academy, you learn the regulations, the rules, the policies, everything that we expect our police officers to do. You serve in a patrol capacity for a certain period of time. And then when those openings come available, which we have obviously plenty, we publish a posting for people to apply to transfer into an SRO position. And something else that I mentioned about our recruitment and retention efforts, something the police department did to try and satisfy this demand, which they have never done before, is they posted a lateral transfer for SROs in other communities. If you're an active SRO in Wilson County or in Rutherford County and you want to come work in our schools, you can apply and the department will put you in a school. You'll go through our academy. It'll be a shorter academy just so you can learn our policies and regulations, and then they're going to put you in a school. And you're going to be assigned directly to a school. We're doing everything we can.
What's the requirement, James? If I wanted to be an SRO, what would I qualify? 55 years old and trying to learn how to shoot better. I don't know. I mean, what's the requirements? Who can do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's of good moral character is above the age of 21 years old, meets the criteria to join the police department. And if you're interested in that, it's joinmnpd.org. You come in, you go through the academy, and you have the ability to apply and transfer once you've qualified through all the standards. Now, you have to serve in a police officer's capacity because, frankly, we want people to know how to do the job before we put them into a specialized unit, right? We don't want to take somebody straight from the academy and put them in a specialized unit and they've never had the experience of how to answer the calls or do things like that. But once you've gone through that standard and you've met that threshold, you apply and you become an SRO. It's that simple.
What's the pay?
Starting pay for a police officer is $65,000. So it's not the greatest, but it's definitely not the worst.
That's a pretty good salary, I think. I think you're doing something amazing, which is protecting children. You're making, I believe that's a pretty good salary. And the website that people can go to again is, what is it?
Joinmnpd.org.
mnpd.org. Thank you very much. James, anything else you want to say? I know we threw this together at the last minute, but is there anything else that we're missing that is germane to this conversation?
Well, I just want to say, A, thanks for having us on and talking about this very important measure. And B, if you're listening and you're concerned about what we've just talked about with our Metro Council, please get involved. Because without your involvement, they're going to continue to act like this is what everybody wants. And we know for a fact this is not what the good men and women in law enforcement want. It's not what the parents in Davidson County want. So please get in touch with your council member. Tell them to knock this nonsense off and move forward.